Hey guys, Custa here. I just wanted to talk about my experiences with Valorant. Fortunately, I was able to play in the sort of closed beta type thing that happened about a week ago, and I was able to try out the game in the form that it's currently at. There is currently only 2 maps, 9 characters, and it was a lot of fun. So I could only play for 3 days, and I couldn't just play flat out because I did have Overwatch League stuff going on at the same time. But I did get a lot of games in and got a really good feel for what the game is going to be. So I'm really excited to play it some more. This game, for me, it has a lot of hype around it, right? I loved FPS games. I've always wanted to play these, styles. And we have this new style of game that's coming in that hasn't really ever been done before. It's sort of CS:GO in terms of the way that the aim works and the way it plays out with attack and defend with bombs. But it does something different to CS:GO in which it has characters with abilities, kind of more to the style of Overwatch. But I sort of wanted to sort of underline and highlight what that means because it is like CSGO in terms of the gunplay. The gunplay is pretty much identical to what you would expect in CSGO. The way the movement works also highlights that. So the guns are essentially CSGO guns. There's an AK-47, there's an M4, there's an AWP, there is a Deagle, there's like their version of a USP. Pretty much every gun that you can think of in CSGO, other than like the niche ones, pretty much exist. So that's not really changing. So that's why a lot of people draw the comparisons to CSGO who have already played it. Okay. But the thing that I want to underline here, and the thing that a lot of people are worried about with this game is the abilities aren't really like Overwatch. There are ultimates, there are abilities, but I would say the abilities are more towards the style of CSGO utility rather than like Overwatch abilities. With Overwatch, you have a massive range of abilities that have all these crazy things and they work and interact so differently. I would say that doesn't really exist as much here, okay? It's a lot of, smokes, there's a lot of Molotovs, there's a lot of flashes. And there is some, different things like Sage has a slow type, thing that she can throw up there. There are these like really cool abilities that really sort of come out and sort of add to the game, but they aren't, in my opinion, overpowered or just make the game unfun, which is what is really important. The only concern that I have is that because of how much utility every character has, sometimes it is complete chaos. Maybe that's because we're all noobs and we don't really know what we're doing. But sometimes there were just 50 smokes, everyone's just running around, there are abilities everywhere, and you have no idea what's going on. I feel like that might be mitigated as people get better and as people work out the game. It definitely seemed to get better as time went on. People weren't just sort of running into utility all the time, and they were playing it smarter. Another concern that a lot of people have in relation to what they're drawing from Overwatch is ultimates. But there is a limitation on ultimates, okay? So the way pretty much every character works is they have 6 to 7 points that are required for them to use their ultimate. You gain a point by getting a kill, dying, planting the bomb, defusing the bomb, or grabbing orbs. There are 2 orbs on the map that you can grab that give you an ultimate point. On average, I would say you would get your ultimate once every, 3 or 4 rounds, okay? But then your ultimate is not always used, so therefore I would say you probably use your ultimate 3 to 4 times a match. This is important to note when you think of characters like Sage, where she has a resurrect ability, something that a lot of people very hesitant on because in Overwatch it sort of ruined the game in a way. I can safely say that it doesn't really ruin the game in Valorant because A, you have to be very close to someone to res, which if someone dies, usually you can't walk up to their body and res them. And with Sage in particular, she actually there's an animation when you're resing someone and that person can be killed while they're being resed. So you can't just like run out and res. So you have to protect the person that you're resing. And it actually sort of has this sort of, complexity around how to use the ultimate. And that exists with pretty much all of the characters. They all have their drawbacks and none of them I feel like are press to win, which is a lot of concerns that people had about Overwatch. You're not just pressing a button and then all of a sudden you win the game, and the other team, it's incredibly hard to counter for. Pretty much every single ultimate has its counters, and it needs to be used in a very specific way to really get the value. So you can't just be walking into a round and just be like, let's just throw the ultimate and it'll work. So that's what really felt good about this game. So every character has their strong abilities, and that's like each character serves its own purpose. And something that we learned as we played more of the game, because I played a lot with Sideshow and I played a lot with Bren, was characters on specific maps is important. There are only 2 maps in the game right now, but we realized on this map, Cypher's really good. Or this map, this person's really good because they have something in their kit that is incredibly useful. Each character has strong abilities, but their abilities are generally very unique to a style of gameplay. So Cypher controls the map really well. He has these trip mines that allow you to hold chokes so no one can go through that choke without alerting that you're there, that they're there. He has, a camera so that you can always see. So he has a lot of, which is good on defense, where you just need to be able to see where people are coming from, right? But then you have characters like Phoenix, who doesn't really have a whole lot of utility, but he has great initiation. He has a flashbang that he can just run around corners. He has a Molotov, so he's a very aggressive style character, but that doesn't really help you as much on defense. So they all have their pros and cons, even though their abilities are incredibly strong. So it's about choosing the character that you want for each given situation and the play style that you're looking to play. If you want to be the entry fragger, Phoenix is a great character. If you want to be the lurker, Cypher is a great character. If you want to be someone who's sort of just holding down sites and sort of playing with other teams, Sage is a great character. So it's about finding the character that fits your playstyle, but also the niche of the map that you're playing with. So going under that idea, I want to talk about each of the characters. So there are 9 characters currently in the game. I'm going to go in order of which ones I think are the strongest. So the 3 strongest characters in my eyes were Phoenix, Brimstone, and Sage. Okay. The reason I like these 3 characters, I think they're consistently good in any situation. I think Phoenix is almost a must pick in his current stage. His ability to have offensive capability, to use his flashbang, to use his Molotov. He has a firewall as well that allows you to get in sights very easily. He can heal himself with all of his fire abilities. And then on top of that, his ultimate is one of the best tools for, breaking open a site, because it's pretty much a free life. It does have punishment on Phoenix, because when you use your ultimate, when you die, there's about a 1.5 second animation of you coming back to your body that people can actually kill you in. So you need to be smart. You can't just be balls to the walls aggressive whenever you use it. My second favorite character was Brimstone. He doesn't actually have a ton of useful abilities. He has 3 smokes that can be used from a very far away, and it can be used by just clicking on the map. So he doesn't need to look at where he's throwing the smokes. He doesn't have to throw a complex smoke of, get in this spot, throw the angle. He just sort of calls it down and it just slams in. And so it makes it really easy to execute sites, because you can just drop 3 smokes at once. I found this almost invaluable, and it made it very easy to get in sites. Obviously, this might just be because we're playing against bad people, because the problem with his 3 smokes is they are very obvious. And if you drop 3 smokes in a site, they know that's where you're going, right? So they can use their own utility to defend it. But I was just really happy with how Brimstone played. I think he's such a useful character. The other one was Sage, okay? So Sage, she uses a wall, she has a heal for other people or herself, and her orb that she throws and creates this slow field is actually incredibly strong. She's incredibly good at holding down sites. Her Resurrect is obviously a very strong ability. So I think she just has a really good kit in terms of holding sites, especially alone. Because if she uses her slow field, if people walk over it, you can hear it. And also her wall is just almost impractical for the enemy team to kill. They can kill your wall, but if they kill your wall, it's generally very obvious what's going on. So I found all these 3 characters to be, in my eyes, almost a must pick. Obviously, there is arguments for and against, but I really like those. The next 3 that I really liked were Cypher, Viper, and Sofa. Cypher just has pure map control. He has a camera which he can look at without having to really be anywhere close to the thing, so he can watch sites and watch chokes without having to really put himself at risk. He has the trip mines, which he can control flanks and people behind you. You know, there's a lot of lurkers and that kind of stuff. He can completely control that. His ultimate is okay. It's not super good. What happens is if someone dies within 20 seconds or 30 seconds, I can't exactly remember, he can just go and click on their body and you will see everyone else alive for 1 frame. So you'll see exactly where everyone is on the map, which can be incredibly valuable, but it's also like, how valuable is that all the time? It's not that strong. Viper is another interesting one under the fact that she has a lot of visual lockdown in terms of she has a toxic wall that she can turn on and off at will. She has a smoke that she can turn off and on at will. Her ultimate is just a complete blackout unless you're on the inside. So it's great if you're on a site. It is awesome at controlling that space and being able to, you know, lock it all down and make sure that you're able to control the flow of where everyone can see and what everyone can do. So that is the value that Viper has. But my problem that I found with her is on offense, it's really hard to get that utility down. Maybe that's because I suck. Probably because I suck. But I couldn't really find the value when I did play her. Sova was, I'm going to say, my main. I don't think Sova is the best character, but I really like Sova. It really fits my playstyle. So Sova is all about providing information. He has the wallhack arrow, which isn't too strong because they can kill it pretty much instantly. But the cool thing about the wallhack arrow is that it goes through utility. So it's a really good, if a ton of utility goes down in terms of smokes, flashes, walls, all that kind of stuff, the wallhack arrow will provide that. He has a drone that he can, you know, walk forward and see where people are positioned on sites. Which is incredibly valuable. I think his ultimate is not very good. It's very hard to get value from. I very rarely killed anyone with it or, you know, opened anything up with it. I did kill Golden Boy one time with it, but he was on my own team, so that was disappointing. But yeah, I think Sova's just really interesting. I think he has a cool kit in terms of just providing information on offense and defense. So for me, the 3 worst characters were Omen, Breach, and Jett. I'll start with Omen. He has unpredictable movement. He has like Reaper's Shadow Step, but it was so short that it felt really hard to actually get value from, especially that you have to look at where you're going. That was a weakness that happened with Reaper, you know, as a character in Overwatch, that his Shadow Step was completely useless because it was so predictable and it was so hard to get off. That still exists for Omen. His ultimate is really good in the fact that he can teleport anywhere on the map. The issue with it is that it gives a massive audio cue to the enemy team, so it's very obvious when someone is behind you. Or they've teleported into a spot that you wouldn't expect them to be. His smoke is okay. Like, I just wasn't super happy with how Omen played. He was, I would say, very rarely played as well in the games. Breach, I don't really know how this character purely works. I'm going to be straight up honest. Not many people play him at all. I played against one really good Breach. He has pretty much his entire kit is built around doing things through walls. So you can shoot, you know, damage through walls. You can shoot flashbang through walls. You can throw stuns through walls. He has like an Earth Shatter type thing that like opens up the thing. But it felt really hard to get the value because his entire kit relies on him knowing where the enemy team is, which isn't always easy, right? Like, you don't always know exactly where the opposition player is. So if that's the case, then it's really hard to get value. So I think that's his biggest weakness, is that it's really hard to get that value. Jett is the last character. I just didn't think Jett was good because obviously it's cool to be able to dash up, go high, and like throw knives and stuff like that. But Jett also has smokes, but they're probably the worst smokes in the game. In my opinion, they just don't last long enough. His dashes are cool, but you can't shoot directly after them, except for when I think you have the blades out. So unless you have the blades, the movement feels... there's too much of a time for you to pull out your gun after you've used movement that it feels like you're just sort of so exposed whenever you use this movement. And in a game like CSGO, in the style of that it is, mobility isn't really king, it's more information and being able to control space, in my opinion. So unless the character was being played wrong, I didn't really find it... Jett was a good character. The ultimate's fun to play around with, but... you know, that you're like, oh, it's a one-shot hit if you hit someone with a headshot with your blades. It's like, yeah, but so does, you know, 30% of the guns that you use most of the time, right? So it's kind of hard to argue for those characters. So that's my summary of all the characters. I've as I said, this is just me speculating off of the short amount of time that I did play. Obviously, there's going to be fors and against of people in my opinion, but this is just how I felt, and after talking to a couple of people I played with, this is pretty much where we ended up on where we thought everything was good. The thing that I liked the most about this game is when you think of playing CS:GO, you imagine that it's all about aiming, right? It's all about who has the better aim, all the better understanding. It didn't really feel like that in this game. A lot of my deaths and a lot of my frustrations when I was, losing was not because I was being out aimed. It felt like I was just not in the right spot. I was not using my abilities or my utility right, and I just had bad crosshair placement, which is kind of like CS:GO, but I feel like aim was a lot less dependent on this game, and it was more about your understanding of the game as a whole and the characters that you're playing and that you're playing against. So that was a really cool thing, but it means it also has a very steep learning curve in terms of understanding how the characters, because when we were in this beta, there are a lot of people that have been playing the game for a very long time compared to us. So you could tell the people that just understood how to play the game better and understood how to use the abilities, understand what the map geometry was and all that kind of stuff. And they just outplayed us in that style, which is a really interesting way, because a lot of people's frustration with CSGO is that, like, I just don't have good aim and I just can't do a lot because of that reason. That doesn't feel like that. I know CSGO does have a lot of intricacies in terms of crosshair placement, all that kind of stuff, and utility, but I feel like this the abilities sort of take a little bit away from that, which is fun, because I come from a game like Overwatch where I love being able to use abilities, utility, and just sort of that kind of stuff to outplay your opponents. So that's going to be my sort of summary and wrap up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay that I've been showing in the videos. The stream, I will hopefully be streaming this game real soon, so I'll be able to talk about it more in depth and sort of like play the game and explain it to you guys as I go. But the thing to remember is this game is still very new, and what is good and what is expected could change. They could patch it, all that kind of stuff. So just take everything that is said with a grain of salt and just enjoy the game and enjoy what you're watching, enjoy that kind of stuff, because if this game feels to me like it will be an enormous game. It has great developers. It's in good hands. It's just an awesome game all around. The biggest weakness it has is the animations, and that it's not a very complex, beautiful game, but it runs incredibly smoothly for that reason. And me, for someone as a competitive person, I love that. I don't want it to be a beautiful game. I want it to run perfectly, and that is what it does. So just enjoy it. Everyone's learning to play. It's going to be exciting. Everyone's going to try and jump on it. So you're already seeing people leave their games. People are retiring from pro in different games to come to this game, because now that everyone's had a taste of it and a test of it, I think it's shown that it can live up to the hype that it's been building.